Hello there, and welcome to the Fish Tank Barn. Over the past few years, I've colony bred quite a few different species of livebearers, and using live plants as cover has been an integral part of that. The plants not only provide cover for the fry, but also help with the overall filtration in the tank. Along with the livebearers that I bred, I took 15 bags of plants to my local fish club auction and made a decent amount of money on them. So let's take a look around the barn and check out the 4 different plants that I use on a regular basis to colony breed livebearers. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about how I use and care for plants in the fish barn. The best way that I can describe how I use plants is I use plants for function, not form. Most of the tanks in the fish barn are for breeding fish and to help with filtration, not necessarily for aquascaping. When I choose plants for the fish barn, I choose plants that are easy for me to grow at a fairly decent speed, and provide maximum benefit for hiding fry. In terms of plant care, I really don't do much for my plants other than adding root tabs when initially planting root feeding plants like crypts. I do feed fairly heavy, so I rely on the fish food and fish waste as fertilizer for any plants that I keep. So now that we've talked about how I use and care for plants, let's go ahead and get on with the list. Hornwort has long been a favorite in many of my breeding tanks here in the fish barn. This floating plant is the fastest growing aquarium plant in the hobby and is extremely good at absorbing nutrients. This plant has fine needles, much like a pine tree, which provides great cover and space to hide fry. I really like using this plant with species like these Antinobis toweri, whose fry go to the surface after being born. I would highly recommend using this plant for any type of livebearer that you're trying to breed. The only downside with hornwort is that it's very hard to clean if it happens to have duckweed or contains algae. I like to use Java moss for fish whose fry drop to the bottom of the tank after being born, which are primarily your Xiphophorus, swordtail, and platy species. This plant will form a thick mat at the bottom of the tank, which provides a great place for fry to hide, especially after they've been born. They're not very strong swimmers. As you can see in this 40-gallon breeder, with my solar flare twin bar swordtails, there are a ton of places where fry can hide on the bottom of the tank. While this plant doesn't grow as quickly as hornwort, it's pretty easy to grow, and you'll have a nice mat of plants in no time. Java moss is often sought after by aquascapers and other plant enthusiasts, so this is an easy plant to harvest and sell at your local swaps and auctions for a decent amount of money. Over the past year or so, I really liked using guppy grass in a lot of my livebearer tanks. This plant will grow quickly into a thick mat and will provide great hiding places for fry. I use this plant much like I use hornwort, just floating it on the surface of the water. This plant does grow at a more downward trajectory than hornwort, so it will cover all the volume of your aquarium if you let it. As you can see here in this tank of Xenotoka dodroi, there's plenty of space for fry to hide. This is a great plant that you can take to your local fish club meetings and swaps to sell. I recently took 5 bags to our local fish club auction and sold all of them for $10 a bag. Crypts or cryptocorns are another plant that I like to use regularly for breeding fish in my fish barn. I like to plant them in the bottom of the tank and have them form a nice mat to provide cover for fry. I use this much in the same way that I use Java moss for fish like swordtails and platies. I really enjoy the look of this crypt garden in this tank with my Scyphia multipunctata, and have designed other tanks in my fish barn around this idea. Making a crypt garden like this will require a little bit more patience, as crypts are much slower growing than the other plants on this list. I found that crypts will generally fetch a pretty decent amount of money at our local fish club auctions and swaps. I hope you enjoyed today looking at my 4 favorite plants that I like to use when colony breeding my livebearers. In the comments section, let me know if you're using any other types of plants for this purpose as well. I'm curious what everyone else is doing. If you'd like to see all the livebearers here in the fish barn, I'll go ahead and put a link at the end of this video to my last full fish room tour. So with that, thank you for watching, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.